Hey, how we doing everyone? Welcome back to another video from us at Nova Combat. So we're going to discuss self-defense and why it's a bit of a con, at least in terms of traditional kind of perspectives on what self-defense is actually meant to try and teach you. And I'm going to say this, that a lot of people, they seem to have this impression that you take a couple of self-defense classes and all of a sudden you're some kind of expert in self-defense. And I know that a lot of seminar instructors will kind of give you that same impression as well. Well, they'll teach you a few techniques and they'll give you a few examples of where these techniques will be used, but then actually trying to apply those techniques in a pressure-tested environment becomes next to impossible. So here's our take on self-defense. So us, like most clubs, most institutions, most schools, will have some kind of self-defense element or self-defense program embedded in them. And I mean, ours, I think, is actually quite robust in a lot of ways because we cut out all of the BS that a lot of self-defense systems seem to have these days. Like, for example, one of the things that we like to teach everyone is that if you can get out, do get out. Get out of the situation as quickly as possible. If you see an escape, that is your best chance of escaping a self-defense situation with next to no injuries. And a lot of it comes down to awareness, how aware you are in whatever situation you're in, understanding when you're under threat. Because as soon as you get to that kind of state of mind where you feel as if, I don't know, there's someone following you, or you feel like something bad is about to happen to you, that's when you're going to start thinking about all the different types of things that you can do in that moment, how you can escape, what escape routes you can take, or even trying to look for any weapons that you can use to defend yourself. And unfortunately here in the UK, it's a bit of a sorry state of affairs because we are not allowed to carry anything. Literally anything that has come along, any products that are being marketed here in the UK specifically for self-defense purposes have been taken by the government, by police or what have you, and have been deemed as dangerous offensive weapons. So for the most part, you can't really carry anything to protect yourself. And to some extent, that is why I kind of understand in the United States why concealed carry gun laws are allowed in most states in the United States, because the easiest way to defend yourself when someone attacks you is to simply pull out a gun and shoot them. It is the biggest equalizer. But of course, I do also understand that you are putting a lot of faith and a lot of trust in people to carry around such weapons because they can be used in a defensive manner and in an offensive manner. This is where we're kind of going to start things off here, because here in the UK, you don't have that many options. When it comes to self-defense, the best self-defense is to try and escape the situation ideally before it's even begun, or at least get to that situation where you have diffused the situation, you've calmed things down, because it's very easy to get hot-headed when, I don't know, someone flips you off or someone calls you a nasty name or so, I don't know, whatever the case might be. It's really easy to get riled up by things like that. And honestly, the easiest thing to do and the safest thing to do in that situation is simply to walk away. Just think to yourself, right, these are words, nothing more. So once you get to that position where you understand that you are under threat, you are able to find a way out, or you're not able to find a way out, well, this is where the next kind of step in self-defense really kicks in. Because in most cases, you are going to get hurt. There is no other way to describe it. You are going to get hurt. The chances of something wrong happening are very high because it's very unpredictable. You don't know the ability of the person who's attacking you. You don't know if they've got any weapons on them. You simply don't know what their motivations are of attacking you in the first place. So it's like, well, you know, you're supposed to guess all this stuff. You're supposed to figure all this stuff out on the fly. And let me tell you right now, that simply doesn't happen. A great example of this is we do this exercise quite regularly where I simply give a weapon over to one of my students and I say, attack that student, and then see how this situation unfolds. Now, the weapon that's being used in this particular video isn't anything specific. It can be a baton, it can be a knife, it can be anything. It doesn't really matter. But if you imagine what would have happened in that situation if that was a knife or it was something more dangerous, the amount of times that all of my students get hit is unreal. Even someone with an MMA background with a lot of experience, they still get hit a number of times with the weapon, and that is just the way how self-defense goes, especially if you've got no idea of the situation, you have no idea how dangerous the situation is going to be. Even if it's like a bar brawl or something like that, if someone grabs a bottle and smashes you over the head with it, there's a high chance you're going to get some pretty serious injuries from that. Even something like box cutters, for God's sake. I watched a video a little while ago of someone walking in with a box cutter, cutting someone across the face. It ended up cutting their jugular, and this is a really thin blade, but obviously very sharp. But that's my point, is that it only takes something very small to do a lot of damage and potentially kill someone. So that's why in any of these situations, all right, just walk away. Even if it's some kind of bar fight situation or a situation where you're getting rolled up by someone, honestly, just walk away. Now let me show you what most clubs, most institutions will actually teach you. And even though this kind of practice it can be beneficial in certain ways, in certain respects, because it allows you to apply certain techniques, in most cases, you're not going to be able to find the opportunity to use those techniques, and a lot of them are so convoluted and so complicated that you're seriously going to struggle applying them in the real world against an opponent who's actually resisting and trying to fight back. So it becomes more of a brawl kind of situation rather than a technical one. And if your club does these kinds of self-defenses, honestly, do them with a pinch of salt, all right? There'll be certain things that you will learn from one-step self-defenses, but for the most part, they are pretty much useless. I mean, you'd be better off practicing, or just as good off practicing something like kata or line work in a lot of these instances. So, okay, if self-defense and self-defense training is, or appears to be, this big waste of time, then what can you do to prepare yourself for one of these situations? All right, so let's take out escape out of the equation. And you have to defend yourself. This is one of those situations where it's life or death, now or never. There is no escape. You are backed into a corner. How do you prepare yourself for that? Well, honestly, the best form of preparation is sparring. We do a lot of sparring in our gym just because it's fun. It allows you to apply the technical aspects of the martial art into the real thing. You're able to condition yourself a little bit, able to understand what it feels like when you get hit, because that's the biggest thing that shocks the vast majority of people the first time they get hit, is that literally that shock factor. It won't necessarily hurt you, but your body reacts in certain ways. And as I kind of mentioned in a previous video, the amount of people they get hit for the first time in even light to semi-contact sparring, and they end up crying afterwards, it's all because of the shock factor, and they really don't know how to handle it. You get loads of adrenaline, you get angry, you get, I don't know, there's all sorts of emotions that you will feel in a sparring situation, and that is one of the things that you're trying to harden. When you're practicing sparring, just light contact sparring is all you need, but it helps you understand how that experience feels when you get hit in the face, when you get hit in the body. How does that feel, and how do you react to it? And it's a way of being able to train yourself to respond better to those kinds of stimulus, that kind of attack. How you react to it in a lot of ways is life or death when it comes to a self-defense situation. Like a great example, you get stabbed with a knife. All right, which you probably will. If you encounter a knife in a self-defense situation, the likelihood of you getting cut or stabbed is incredibly high. Regardless of whatever you do, you are going to get stabbed. You're going to get hurt in that situation. It's because you've got to get in close in order to protect yourself. You can't keep backing away. Like I said, the scenario here is you're in a corner. You have got to defend yourself. You've got to do something. And the only way you can protect yourself is to try and get close to your opponent, to give you that opportunity to actually protect yourself, to actually deal a bit of damage to your opponent. So you get stabbed. What are you going to do? Are you just going to sit there and take it? You know? I mean, okay, getting stabbed isn't going to feel anything like getting punched or something like that. But still, you never know. If you get stabbed or you get cut, that might not be the end of it. Protect yourself. Keep protecting yourself. Don't stop protecting yourself until it is over. You never know. You might actually be able to recover from any injuries that you might sustain. But if it means life or death, well, unfortunately, you've got to be quite proactive when it comes to the whole life or death situation thing. You've got to be able to prepare yourself to get stuck in. You've got to be prepared to actively protect yourself. No one is going to do it for you. All right? I mean, we can do another video in future about the ways that other people might be able to help you when it comes to a self-defense situation like this. But I've even seen it in videos. You can find them everywhere, where there are people getting stabbed openly in public, and everyone else is just a bystander. It's called the bystander effect, where no one wants to do anything. Everyone's too afraid to help someone, even though they're gushing with blood, and you know that they are going to die from this experience. And I think in the scenario that I'm remembering in the video that I watched, luckily, I mean, it was a bloke stabbing a lady or cutting a lady, and he was on top of her as well. You know, full MMA style, full mount, and he was just cutting her, man. It was awful. It was absolutely disgusting. But there was hundreds of people witnessing what was going on. They were witnessing this attempted murder. And luckily, I mean, one or two people actually did try to stop the guy, and I think she ended up surviving the ordeal, but she would have been close to meeting her maker. I mean, she was gushing with blood, and God knows how long she was being chased with that knife beforehand anyway, how many cuts she actually sustained before the video of what we saw actually started happening, you know. And in that situation, you think to yourself, oh my goodness, this person is totally helpless. What can they do? What can you do? And that is the scariest part about defending yourself, is that you might end up getting into one of those situations where there is nothing you can do. All you can do is try and keep trying to resist. But I mean, the woman in this video, she was just accepting what was happening. There was nothing she could do. She was crying. It was horrendous. And so this is why, I mean, preparation beforehand is the most important part of self-defense in any situation. All right, if you don't get taught this by your school, by your club, all right, take this away from this video. If there's anything you take away from this video, the preparation before a self-defense scenario is the most important part. Being aware of your surroundings. Even if you're really drunk, all right, you've got to be in that position, that frame of mind where you can switch on that threat detection, that awareness that you need, that instinct that you need to get away. You never know what motivates people to do the things they do. They could be a psychopath, a sociopath. I don't know. I don't really know what the difference is between those two terms. But you know what I mean. It's that attitude that so many people have where, oh, it won't happen to me. Oh, the police are around. I'm safe. I'm protected. You're not. All right. Police these days in the UK in particular, honestly, I mean, even though taking the fact that they are overstretched the vast majority of times anyway, my dad is an ex-police officer. He can tell you all about it, but they don't do anything. They can't do anything. They can't be everywhere at once, and if they could help you, they would try, but by the time someone or yourself gets the opportunity to contact the police about what is going on, the situation will be over. It will be too late. You alone are the only person that can protect yourself in these situations. Just keep that in mind. But anyway, those are a few examples of self-defense mentalities that you kind of need to have going into any kind of self-defense training or what have you. But honestly, having that mentality of it never happens to you, that is the worst kind of mentality to have. All right, when it comes to protecting yourself, there is not enough stuff you can do to protect yourself, to prepare yourself for that situation, because then when it happens, if it happens, I hope it doesn't, but if it does, at least you'll be somewhat prepared to react in a way that either gets you out of there or that gives you a much better chance of success against someone who is trying to attack you. All right. I mean, I did kind of mention earlier about finding a weapon. A weapon can be anything. It can be a bin. It can be a stick. It doesn't really matter. I mean, we've kind of done a video before in the past about how to use a mobile phone as something for self-defense, but honestly, the options are fairly limited in what you've got on you. There are some people that say about keys, holding onto your keys around your knuckles, using them to like swipe across the person's face, things like that. But keys aren't that threatening. When you're trying to find a weapon, you have to try and find something that is actively threatening. So it makes the person trying to attack you think twice before they actually decide to engage. And usually if you get something like a really big stick, or you get something really big, whatever it might be, it doesn't matter. A stick, a post, a bin lid. I mean, again, there's not many things in the UK that you could actually pick up, but if you're lucky, you might be able to find something. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe you can break off a long stick from a bush or a shrub nearby. I don't know, all right? But that's all that this video is meant to kind of be about, is how unpredictable, the unpredictable nature of self-defense and what it actually is. But just because I've said all that, it doesn't mean that, oh, well, because you can't train for self-defense, it means that training for it is totally useless, right? Again, it's that preparation mentality. I'd prefer to have a little bit of know-how and a little bit of skill and a little bit of experience in martial arts, in sparring, in self-defense training than none at all. You never know, it might actually come in handy one day. And I'd heavily recommend that everyone and their nan does some form of martial arts training that is actually practical and you can actually apply to a self-defense scenario of some kind, even if it's just unarmed stuff. But like I said, sparring is honestly the best way to prepare yourself for a self-defense situation. And you can pretty much conduct it as a regular sparring session, except give someone a weapon of some kind, a blunt, soft weapon to use as a knife, or I don't know, as a baton of some kind. Doesn't really matter what it is, and train that way. All right? Just because of the examples that I showed you before, all of my students got hit. Everyone got hit at least once. It doesn't matter. Can you imagine how many times you would have got hit if you didn't have a little bit of that experience, if you didn't have a little bit of that training? You know, this is why doing martial arts is one of the most important things you can do throughout your life, not just for enjoyment, satisfaction, health and well-being purposes, all right? You get to learn something new, but also something practical, something that may actually save your life one day. Well, all that being said, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this little video, and let me know what you think down in the comment section below. What kind of martial arts systems do you think are the most effective for self-defense? I've refrained from mentioning any specific martial arts in this video because I actually think that it doesn't matter what martial art you train as long as you do some form of sparring, some form of continuous, intense sparring. Any club can do it. All clubs, or the vast majority of clubs that do sparring, will have the equipment to do like those little self-defense experiments that we've shown in today's video. And honestly, it's a really good way of testing people's willpower to survive. And a little bit of that goes a long way. But yeah, let me know what you think down in the comment section below as always. Thanks again. Leave a like, hit subscribe, and we will catch you all in the next video. Have a good one.